The Wisconsin primary is tomorrow, and the Republican and Democratic presidential candidates are working hard to win votes. For Donald Trump, that means doing damage control after making some big mistakes last week.
Hillary Clinton also created some problems for herself Sunday with her own comments on abortion. Ephraim Graham has the story.
I'll have an orange juice.
Republican frontrunner Donald Trump begins his presidential campaign week in Wisconsin, calling on Ohio Governor John Kasich to drop out of the race in one breath and eating a bit of humble pie in the other.
Was this my best week? I guess not. I could have done without the retweet, etc., etc.
Trump now says if he could have a do-over, he would not have retweeted an unflattering picture of Heidi Cruz, the wife of Republican rival Senator Ted Cruz.
It's gotten to the point where I could not care less about Donald Trump.
And at this point, polls show Senator Ted Cruz beating Donald Trump in Wisconsin ahead of Tuesday's GOP presidential primary. And Trump also trying to recover from statements he made last week saying a woman should be punished if she chooses to have an abortion.
As a hypothetical question, I would have rather asked it, answered it in a different manner, yeah.
Donald's answers are the answers of someone who's a liberal, trying to say what he thinks conservatives want to hear.
The abortion issue is also sparking trouble on the Democrat side of the presidential debate, with frontrunner Hillary Clinton upsetting both sides of the debate with talks about constitutional rights and the personhood of an unborn baby.
Currently, that is not something that exists. The unborn person doesn't have constitutional rights.
But as the Washington Times reports, pro-choice advocates say a fetus is not a child, while pro-life argue that calling an unborn child a person would indicate that it does have constitutional rights. Clinton faces a tight race in Wisconsin Tuesday, with big turnout for rival Bernie Sanders over the weekend in Madison, the state's most liberal city. But with only hours left until the polls open in the state, candidates in both parties are pushing hard, especially on the Republican side, where Cruz is looking to win and slow down Trump's momentum. Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
I've never seen a primary like this one. This is absolutely incredible. And it's political theater of the highest order. On one party, you have a candidate who seems to be just bent on spiking his own negatives. In the other party, you've got a candidate under investigation by the FBI. In years past, what we've seen would have eliminated both of them, but no, here they are, the front runners for both parties. If you're in Wisconsin, I encourage you, please vote tomorrow. It's awful late in this season, and for this thing to be going down to the wire, we're looking at contested conventions probably in both parties. We need to vote. We need to have our voice heard. Well, in other news, 2 survivors of the terrorist attack in Brussels tell CBN News how those bombings changed their lives. John Jessup has that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
Gordon, those survivors were Christian missionaries, and when the Brussels attacks took place, they found themselves just seconds away between a tragedy or a miracle. Chris Mitchell brings us that story from Belgium.
On the morning of March 22nd, Rocky Gainwright dropped off his friend Jeff Slaughter at the Brussels airport. Jeff entered the arrivals hall just moments before the terror attack.
So I rolled up to the kiosk, pulled my knapsack off, and turned around to pick up a suitcase when I saw a bright yellow flashing light. And then I heard a big, violent boom. And then just 3 or 4 seconds later, there was another big boom. And that's when the ceiling tiles began to rain down just all around me.
All of the glass just shatters outward and just comes hurling at everybody. But people were running into my car because they were not paying attention. They were just trying to get away as fast as they could.
I was about maybe 30 feet from a door, and I think my mind just told my body, get out.
But Jeff didn't know how bad it was.
This lady was over there holding the door open, and I could see that she was an airport employee. And in my naivety and shock, I said, ma'am, do you think that we're going to be able to go back in and leave today? And she said, sir, the airport is broken.
Rocky didn't know what happened to his friend.
I just put Jeff in the building, and I just couldn't imagine what I had just done. So I pull my car up and I park, and I'm thinking, I may have to go in the building and just pull him out.
You're just trying to process the fact that you went in, it happened, and you got out, and wow, what in the world has happened?
About 15 minutes later, they reunited.
But we found ourselves right by the triage center, so I was just like, these people need help. So we just began to talk to this one airline employee. Had a cut over her eye and blood all down her face. And so I just walked up to her and I said, can I pray with you? Do you believe in God? And she says, well, at this moment, I do now.
After the attack, the haunting question for many, including Jeff, what if?
I could have easily have walked down to Starbucks and been right in the middle of all that. I would have been right there.
During their Sunday Easter service, Jeff's local church prayed for him.
But we thank you for sparing his life, and we thank you, Lord, for allowing him to be with us this morning.
You have to think how blessed you are to not have gone through that, but at the same time, it really makes you think, wow, that could have been me, you know, and my heart just goes out to those people and those families that are missing loved ones and that are in the hospitals and that are burned and hurt and their lives have been torn apart.
Jeff experienced the fragility of life.
It's in God's hands, and we just have to trust Him through the difficulties of those times and trust that His grace is sufficient, even in the darkest hour.
Rocky sees an opportunity for the church.
I think this is going to shake Belgium. I think it's going to shake our comfort zones so that we need God. We actually realize that we need God and that there is no protection outside of an eternal security that happens in your heart. That's what Belgium needs to know, and I want the Christian community to stand up and give that to them.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Brussels, Belgium.
Thanks, Chris. Here at home, Christian owners of a bed and breakfast in Illinois have been fined $80,000 for refusing to host a same-sex wedding. The State Human Rights Commission says Jim and Beth Walder discriminated against two gay men who wanted to get married. But Jim Walder says no fines can force them to change their religious beliefs. He told the Ford County Record, "We cannot host a same-sex wedding, even though fines and penalties have been imposed." He went on to say, "Our policy will not be changing." Well, a former prison inmate who was serving 2 life sentences is the newest pastor of Rick Warren's Saddleback Church. The church commissioned Danny Duchesne this weekend. He'll lead the Mercy Ministry to prison inmates, and he's well qualified. Duchesne spent 32 years in a maximum security prison. There, he read Rick Warren's book, Purpose-Driven Life. In 2003, he helped to recruit 200 inmates to take part in Saddleback's 40 Days of Purpose small group Bible study. Later that year, Warren preached at the prison and baptized new believers. That same night, 100 inmates dedicated a new church in the prison yard.
One of the big changes was a reduction in violence in the prison. Prior to doing the 40 Days of Purpose campaign, racial violence and gang violence often controlled the prison. But during our 40 Days of Purpose, when we launched all those small groups, not a single fight or riot interrupted. Pastor Rick told me that the warden called him and said, "What have you done to my prison? Everybody is peaceful."
Today, the prison has dedicated a 200-man cell block for those in the church's Celebrate Recovery small group program. The parole board freed Duchesne in 2014 after Warren sent a letter saying, "I need to hire him as a pastor at Saddleback, and I need him now." Christian persecution is on the rise around the world, according to Open Doors USA. The bombing of Christians in Pakistan on Easter was just one of the latest examples. A faction of the Taliban claimed responsibility for that attack, killing more than 70 people. Open Doors reports more than 7,000 Christians were killed for their faith last year, almost 3,000 more than in 2014. The group's president, David Curry, tells the Daily Beast many Americans don't understand just how serious the state of Christian persecution is throughout the world, and it's expected to keep getting worse. You can find out more about persecution and what's being done to stop it at cbnnews.com. Gordon?
Well, we need to be praying for the persecuted church. Finally, we're calling it what it really is. It's a genocide. It's an ethnic cleansing of the Middle East. Just exactly what they did back in 1948 to drive out all the Jews from the Middle East. they're doing now, the Muslims are doing now, to drive out all minority religions, whether that's Christian or Yazidi or anything other than the strictest interpretation of Islam. And these bombings, these beheadings, this persecution is going to continue. We need to be in prayer for the persecuted church, and we need to encourage our government. Let's wake up to the threat that Christians are facing, particularly in the Middle East.